why this book, why now, who's publishing it, why this authorship?
It's a cui bono question. Who tends to benefit from publishing an essentialist book at this particular point in time in the United States of America, in the midst of feminist wars, in the midst of a time when pointing out, in the line of Judith Butler, that the majority of gender may in fact be performance, that to publish an essentialist book at that point is to radically position oneself
and attack it specifically.
And
I wasn't aware of that.
From an extreme conservative position, which is one of the reasons I think that it's receiving so much publicity right now.
What's the title of the book again?
It's called As Nature Made Him.
Yeah.
And my impression upon reading the book was that, I mean, you know how you do symptomatic reading, right? You read for that which is left out.
Sure.
Right? When you read As Nature Made Him symptomatically, one of the things that I think, and I invite you to make your own decisions about this, but one of the things that leaps out at you is the total absence of any critical perspective. Is the absence of any sense of, while I was busy thinking that there was something wrong, while I was wondering what's wrong, why am I not behaving right, and all those sorts of things, what's going on around me? Why am I doing those things? The a priori conclusion is, I'm doing those things because there is some essential nature, some deep essential identity that is trying to be expressed. This is the worst of the transy arguments coming back like the return of the repressed to haunt us. I was born into the wrong body, which is what many transies say to explain what's going on with them, and which completely erases any possibility of any kind of experience that they might have had from birth onward that was imposed upon them by other people, consciously or unconsciously, that might have predisposed them to one thing or another. I don't say, let's throw out As Nature Made Him. I mean, it's a useful book in the ongoing discourse of gender. But to accept it uncritically as either an explanation of gender or as an indictment of John Money is to miss the point. And please keep that in mind.
Especially when it shows up on 60 Minutes and the hundreds of thousands of other important books on sex and gender don't end up with full stories on 60 Minutes.
I just wandered into a story.
No, but I mean,
I had no idea I was
the
wandering
minute
into
you
a
look
minefield.
Any book on gender is a minefield.
Yeah.
And the less problematic they are, the more of a minefield they are.
So this is in this book. I haven't read it. I haven't heard of it. There's a boy whose penis is removed, and he's told that he's a girl. And he feels growing up that he's a boy. So there's the essentialist argument.
Wrong.
He just feels wrong.
Right.
But
That's
is he
the way
given
it's portrayed.
hormones so that he grows secondary sex characteristics?
Yeah, he's treated. He becomes one of John Money's patients, and they fly to Baltimore on a regular basis.
But he doesn't know that why he's being treated, or he does know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
But his brother.
Again, in this case, the child claims that he was born into the right body, and that things became confused thereafter. But it's still. We don't know enough to know what the fine structure is. It's like this is an analog to the Human Genome Project, where for a while we had people running around saying, "Aha, we've sequenced the human genome. Now we know how to build humans, and we know how to cure various diseases and so forth." The thing is, from knowing the sequence of the human genome, we really know almost nothing. We've acquired a useful piece of knowledge, but it really doesn't tell us anything about the rest of what goes on with the genome. We know the physical locations. We've solved the geography of the human genome. But we still don't know anything about how different parts of the genome turn each other on and off, or which parts are active and which parts are inactive. We're beginning, the people who are involved with molecular biology at the genetic level are beginning to be aware that only a small part of the genome is active. The rest of it doesn't appear to do anything, and nobody knows why. Maybe it's comments. I mean, there was one running gag in genetics is that it's the comments that God put into the code. Things like Rev 2 looks pretty good. You're going to experiment with apple and serpent. Things like that. It will be a much, much longer time before we understand how the bits of the genome relate to each other, because the relationships can be so very, very complex. And how the relationships work is not at all obvious, and in fact may change. There are still a lot of factors about how the DNA is read out that we don't quite understand. I mean, I could go on about that. And similarly, with these issues of gender, I, like John Money, would like to be able to find some grand unified theory that explains gender. I think that in all probability that will never happen because no grand unified theory of gender exists. Gender and its interactions are as complex as the human genome, perhaps more complex. And again, as with identity, when you start to go down through the layers to find the essential root of the thing, what you find is there's nothing there. In a different way from there is no woman. There is nothing there because as you go into this seemingly what's the word that Brian Massumi uses? Molar. The seemingly molar construction of gender, which is to say a closed, discrete, explicable object that you can hold out in front of you and look at. Here it is. This is gender. We can see its boundaries. We can see what's in and out, and if we open it up now, we can see what the components of gender are. But when you start to open it up, what you discover is there is no internal physical structure to this model of gender. What there are in there are relationships. And once you get into it, it's like power in the Foucauldian sense, which is to say, when you stand on the mountainside and you look down into the valley, you can see the mist down in there. It's palpable. It looks like if you went down in there, you could scoop the mist up in your hands, and it would come up like cream. But when you get down into it, as soon as you get into it, it becomes invisible. You look around and you know it's all around you, but you can't perceive it anymore once you're in it. And I think that gender, I would propose that gender is very much like that. It works like that. When you get into it to the point where you think, now I can see what it is, that's when it disappears. That's when it turns into a congerie of relationships, and no group of which by themselves explain what it is that's going on. And the only way to understand it is to back out of it again. And then you have the molar view, which tells you nothing. It shows you that there is such a phenomenon, and it's ongoing. I mean, it's real. There it is.